this is yeticket.com, and I'm Al McGee, but I'm here with Megan S. Smith. She is the producer, writer, and director for the film bOObs, The War on Women's Breast. Now, Megan, let me start off with this little story. I was talking to my girlfriend, and then I talked to another lady friend of mine. Two questions that I asked them was this: do you know your breast density? And also, do you know how much, when you take a mammogram, how much the radiation is offered in a mammogram? They both said no. Then they said, what are you talking about? Because throughout all their lives, when they had a breast exam, they would always get a mammogram. So talk about that.
So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Breast density is very important. There are 4 categories of it, and the top 50%, the top half, these women should actually be getting ultrasounds, and the top 10% actually should be getting ultrasounds instead of mammograms. We're doing it backwards. The radiologist can't see through the white tissue of the dense breast tissue to see the cancer in these women, and so, but they're not being told this, and that's what's so upsetting about it. The gynecologist who's writing the script is getting the report back for the mammogram, and they're not telling these women, you need to go have an ultrasound. So they're just saying you have dense breasts, and women go, okay, you know, and they leave. So that's a real problem. So women know about, please find out about your breast density and find out if you need to get an ultrasound in addition to the mammogram, or just skip the mammogram. Can
you explain breast density a little bit? Because many women probably still don't understand what that means.
Okay, so 90% of us have some form of dense breasts, and it's called fibroglandular tissue. And it's just literally, instead of fatty tissue, you have this fibroglandular, which makes it harder for the radiologist to see through the breast to find the cancer. That's kind of the long and short of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I understand.
Okay.
Okay, then here's the other question is, okay, the gynecologist reads the mammogram, but as a gynecologist, is that person really trained to understand what's going on?
So actually the gynecologist is the one who writes the prescription. You wouldn't know that probably because you don't have a gynecologist. And but the radiologist is the one who's back there with the radiation tech, and they're the ones who are putting you through the mammogram machine. And the radiologist is the one who reads the report from the mammogram. Then they give that report to the gynecologist, and that's who the woman hears from, is the gynecologist. And then it's up to the gynecologist or the GP, whoever she got the script from, to say, okay, red alert, you have dense breast, you need to get an ultrasound as well, because even though they're saying they didn't find any cancer, until you get an ultrasound, we won't know, because that's really the better tool for it.
Yes, but from your documentary, it seems that many gynecologists do not recommend that procedure for women. They just look at it, go by what the radiologist tells them, and the women go home. But later on, then they get, you know, more cancer.
Right, they'll find a lump usually later. Right, so the disconnect is the radiologist knows this, is telling the gynecologist, but the gynecologist isn't telling the woman for some reason. I don't know why there's this disconnect. I think it's their association isn't stressing it. They're not recommending the ultrasound for women with dense breasts. That's one of the problems. I'm going to talk to them actually, see if we can change that. So the gynecologist says, okay, well, she's got dense and she's got very, very dense breasts, but they don't recommend the ultrasound. Most of them, some of them, yes, but not most of them.
Yeah, I saw that in your documentary. They don't do that. And again, these women wind up with breast cancer much later. And also, how come women don't know this generally? They don't have this information.
Well, they're starting to get more of it because there's a group called Are You Dense? Out of Connecticut. It was started by a woman who was had extremely dense breasts for 11 years and wasn't told by her gynecologist that she had them. She didn't get an ultrasound. She ended up having stage 3C cancer and dying from it.
Wow.
And in the
Wow.
meantime, she started up an association with her husband, Joe Capello, and they have actually been leading the fight for this. And so every state, every attorney general has been setting up dense breast notification for women, but they're all different. Sometimes you just have to be told you have dense breasts, and it stops there, and the gynecologist is still not telling them that you're more susceptible by 5-fold if you have really dense breasts of getting cancer. They're not discussing this with the patient, and it's beyond me what is going on. And again, I think it starts with that association, ACOG. So we need to put words with them.
Exactly. And also, going back to a little bit what you said, I feel that many women still do not know how much radiation is in a mammogram and how much less radiation is in an MRI and an ultrasound. So how are they going to get to know that?
So when women ask their doctor, well, I'm really concerned about the radiation, how much is in there? This is what they get for the comeback. It's just the same amount of radiation as it is flying across the United States, which I've heard several times. Right. And you go, oh, well, that doesn't sound like a lot. No, it's really minimal. It's really low dose radiation. Well, I started to poke around the literature, and I found out, and I talked to a Columbia University professor, and he said, no, I'm not sure why they're talking about, that's the scattered radiation from the mammogram. That's not what's going into your breast directly, the absorbed dose. That's what can cause the radiation-induced cancer years later. And we're not being told this. And the gynecologists don't understand radiation. I'm finding out now that the radiologists don't even understand radiation like that. They only know how to read the scans. They don't really understand radiation. The radiation physicists understand this, but they're not talking to the radiologist, and they're not talking to the gynecologist. So the whole thing is a mess. And women are the ones we're getting these induced cancers. National Cancer Institute is saying 1 in 1,000 women theoretically could have induced cancer. And, who knows, it might be more than that. So I'm really concerned about this radiation amount. And if you have large breasts or dense breasts, you're getting up to 20 times the amount. So a lot of the mammograms aren't set to the right standard that FDA has it regulated at. And so those women are getting blasted, and that's scary. Where's FDA? They're supposed to be looking at these machines every year.
Dr. Robinson, in the documentary, she talked about her mom and how she had breast cancer and things like that. And also you talked about Dr. Caprillo also about his wife, what happened to his wife and things like that. When these people talk about, they talk about the effects they had on them also when their loved one does, when they get this breast cancer. And you talked about that a little bit in your documentary.
Yeah, it was interesting. The one doctor, I had no idea she'd had a cancer scare, and she just divulged this to me. God bless her, Dr. Dupre. And I thought that was fascinating to see what she did. And of course, she panicked like the rest of us. But of course, she had the tools to go running in and get ultrasound herself, she said.
Right.
But she went through the whole nerve-wracking experience of, do I have cancer, and waiting for the report to come back. And, thank goodness it was not. It was some kind of weird precancer. That's the other thing. Actually, if you don't mind, the precancer of this thing called ductal carcinoma in situ, it's a precancer, and it's 25% of cancers. And it's also, they call it stage 0 because they run out of stages. It's a precancer, and it's being way over-diagnosed. And that, again, accounts for 25% of cancers. And I didn't know about this until my girlfriend said she'd had a double mastectomy because she had DCIS twice. She'd also had 40 mammograms. And then when I looked into the literature, there is speculation that the smashing of the breast is causing trauma, which is causing inflammation. And also most cancers arise from the epithelial cells in the ducts of the breasts. And if you're smashing that and then radiating it, which is susceptible to radiation damage, everything we're doing in this area is bass-ackwards, quite frankly. And we need to look at this. Women need to get smart about this. We need to start asking our doctors, putting pressure on them and the associations and Congress. And at the end of my film, you probably saw that I was asking women to write their congressmen and You know, I
Right.
gave them a list of to call up and attorney generals, because that's the only way it's going to change. We gotta get to band together, because trying to change this monster is going to be hard.
Yeah, that's why I really, really enjoyed this documentary because, again, this affects me also because, you know, my girlfriend and then I have sisters and, you know, and other females in my life. And I know how, and also, you know, it could affect me too. Men can have breast cancer also.
True.
But the only reason men go in there because then they feel a lump. They don't have the mammograms and things like that. Many of them, like women, do. But you also showed in your documentary that Switzerland now no longer recommends mammograms for women. Wow, how can we get that here? And how can, you know, we get, again, more and more of this knowledge to other women?
Right. So Switzerland, following a couple of years, about, well, actually, I think it's been 10 years now, they changed the mammogram recommendations. They said instead of having them every year, some people were saying, well, let's do them every other year in certain categories, and started doing them later in life. And that's because the literature, they, out of the Nordic Cochrane Center, did this huge massive meta-analysis on all the literature out there, and they found out that we were way over-diagnosing it. And when we're dying from the treatments, that they didn't even have the cancer, and radiation-induced cancers, and everything collectively was pointing to, why the heck are we doing this? Because there's as many women are getting harmed from the mammogram than are getting helped by it. And so when they figured that out, it changed the whole paradigm as far as how often we're getting screened. And that's why Switzerland said, we're just going to say, don't do this anymore. Unfortunately, the radiologists over in Switzerland, I've heard through a friend of mine, is they're still recommending it, even though the medical board doesn't. But you know, we've got the science behind us. Now we just need to really raise our voices and say, hey, let's at least do the ultrasound instead of the mammogram, and use the mammogram if they find something as the diagnostic tool. It's all backwards now. You have to get a mammogram, then you can have an ultrasound, because that's the way the insurance schedule is set up.
Yeah, and I noticed, that the insurance does not cover, what is it, there's another treatment, thermography, thermography,
Right.
thermography.
No,
They don't cover that.
No.
And
It's FDA approved. It just it's not covered by insurance. But it's a good tool, because it catches cancers while they're forming, because you see inflammation in the breast, and there's no other tool out there that can do that. So it makes sense that we bring that in and use that if as a primary screening device, if not an adjunct to everything, and let women get paid for it. Otherwise, they're probably not going to do it.
yeah, that's right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about you. See, you are an actress. Also, you're a script writer. Tell us a little bit about that part of your life.
I've had a strange career. I started out as a performer with my sister, a country folk singer. I did that for 10 years. Then I lobbied Capitol Hill for 10 years in renewable energy. Then I started to write screenplays of stuff that I saw on Capitol Hill. And I did that for 10 years. And I had Sidney Pollack read one of them. I had some things were kind of starting to, head the right direction. But then one day, my husband passed away from cancer 11 years ago. And after that's when I went, it didn't go so well. After 2 rounds of chemotherapy, he was gone. And I thought, there's got to be a better way. I started to look into alternative cancer therapies, and my next documentary will be on that. And then meanwhile, 3 of my friends died from breast cancer that had come back after 10 years, 15 years, and 30 years. So I lost 3 friends in 3 years, and I was really upset and said, I got to do something. So I kind of took all my skills, my master's in science and my journalism. I'm an investigative journalist, also written for the Washington Post. And I put it all together and decided, I ran into a documentary filmmaker, and I thought, I just need a cameraman, right? This is easy. It wasn't as easy as I thought it was, but it's been an interesting learning curve. And but I just want to get this message out, and I just figured it was not going to end up in the New York Times or a big paper like that. I was going to have to use the Fifth Estate.
Exactly. And also, you have a production company now called Waymark Productions, where you're going to try to work and get information out with people with disabilities and cancers and things like that. So why did you decide to have this type of company to do that also?
I think I've always enjoyed medicine. I was pre-med and fascination with the human body. And I had contracted Lyme disease about 2007. And that's the article I wrote for the Washington Post on about the inaccuracy of Lyme disease testing. It had never been really reported much before. And so I just decided I'm going to do it on cancer because I'm, I was still grieving about my husband. And then I want to do one on Lyme disease politics. And then from there, who knows? But I want to stay in the health area. I think big medicine, we're just falling asleep here. We need to wake up and take our health back and get healthy and stop eating McDonald's, which I love too, but that every day is killing us. And we need to just wake up. It's I don't know, something needs to change. It needs to shift. I think people are starting to catch on to what's going on.
Yes, I totally agree with you. Things need to shift. And your documentary, bOObs, the War on Women's Breast, is a good direction for women to look at. And anything else you want the audience to know about your documentary?
Just that it's available and streaming and makes a great Christmas stocking stuffer. I just think, the more women that see this, the better. And we need to start talking about it and get it on Congress's docket and see where it goes, see if we can change this. It's just awful.
Yeah, it is awful. And like I said, it affects all of us. And this is a very good documentary because when I saw it, I said, I need to talk about it some more, and I'm going to do a review, and I'm going to get it out to as many people as I can. Well, Megan, thank you for taking time with me, Al McGee at YETicket.com. I am so glad to talk to you. Like I said, when I saw the documentary, my eyes got large, my brain started going in circles and things like that, and I wanted to have more information, and I want to thank you for coming, and I really enjoyed this conversation. And please, whatever you do next, please keep in touch with me and let me know, so I can help get it out, and also so I can talk to you about it, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. You too. Take care.
All right.